Okay. Stand at ease here just for a couple of moments. I see some people's audio are connecting. So.
Too. It's just, yeah.
It's fine. People do what like to actually breathe in this discussion.
Yeah.
If people aren't speaking, could they mute real quick? Steve, we're picking up some background noise from your line.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I had mine on mute.
Nope. It's okay.
And I joined with computer audio. What do you say?
He said, I'm going.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and get started? I'm sharing my screen. Okay. We're getting a little bit of feedback there. All right. Okay. Okay, great. So Nikki's on. So yeah, let's just kind of pick up from where we left off. Let me go over the new additions. So Nikki had sent some language, which is here in, so you can see track changes. And she was suggesting, in addition to having she was suggesting some specific data sets. So not just numbers, but also to track those numbers historically. So in the end, in the out periods, in the later periods, like in a year, 2, 3, we can see what are the increase, what are the decreases in some of these different things. Which I thought sounded good. Nikki, you want to speak to that any more other than what you've written there, which I thought was pretty straightforward?
Not really. My biggest question was, I don't know if we could get baseline data on that information easily, or, what that would entail.
Yeah, I think the challenge is that there's some data being tracked, as Stephen pointed out, because we report data to the feds and to like the Institute for Community Inclusion, ICI, which does the State of the States report. But a lot of this data that you're talking about, the number of people working in competitive integrated employment, et cetera, we do, we can track through the Department of Labor the number of individuals who are working under a 14C certificate. So, but the core question on competitive integrated employment is something I think Steve has been trying to get for quite a while. So on some of that, we have to establish the baseline. We have to figure out how to track it. And I think that's inherent to the recommendation. Does that make sense? But you have to start somewhere. You have to have a year one.
Yeah, this is Steve, and I did go look this morning at the State of the State stuff for 2021, and my guess is that it's actually fairly accurate. But again, it's only telling us that there's 205 people that are in supported employment in Kansas right now. But it doesn't really give us any other data than that.
Right.
And in 2017, it was reported that there was over 3,000 people in supported employment in Kansas. And so that's whenever I started the data isn't right, because it was like 200 people, then it's 3,000. Now it's back to 200. So I think the 200 is probably an accurate figure.
Right.
Steve, I think the last numbers that we received upon our research here at KDADS was in the 130 to 160 range. So I would believe the 200 number as well.
Okay. Yeah, that just feels more accurate.
Yeah, I've never seen a 3,000 number ever.
Yeah, the 3,000 number is in the 2017 State of the State report, which is what the state would have reported to the State of the State folks.
Okay.
So
that's funny. All right, I'll look for it.
So,
Sorry,
Steve, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, is there a report that says, how many individuals are in competitive integrated employment that's not supported employment, that are just independently working in competitive and sorry, I have got a cold and can't talk this morning apparently. How many individuals are in competitive integrated employment, not just supported employment? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It
I don't
does.
believe there's any
Yeah.
place that that data is being collected at this time, Nikki. You would have some VR data that's probably pretty accurate. But that would be it.
Steve, what about the workforce center?
No, they wouldn't have any way of getting at that data either,
Okay,
because they don't have a way to. I mean, they could get to labor data, as far as they could get to wage records, but I don't think they would know who was a person with a developmental disability, or you know what I mean. I don't know how
Okay.
they would get the sort.
okay, thank you.
That's part of the
Steve,
problem
this
is there's different pieces. Everybody's got a piece of the information, but nobody's got all the information.
Yeah.
So the most recent State of the State reports, we pulled the numbers for supported employment by billing code. And so only X amount of the 200 or whatever number came from that. I don't know where the 3,000 came in 2017. It wasn't a part of that, but my guess is it might have been some self-reporting on the part of IDD providers, which were actually billing for the day service code. And I just don't know where that number came from.
Yeah, I actually think that data was pulled by somebody that didn't understand what independent or competitive employment actually was. I think they just looked at there was wage records, and if there
Yeah.
was wage records, they figured they were working in competitive employment then.
Yeah, that might have been something like that. I don't really know.
Yeah, but again, I
That
don't
sounds
think we
right.
want to spend a lot of time on our history because we really need to be looking towards the future. So I agree with what Nikki's saying here. If we can find a way to get that data, I think it'd be wonderful.
Okay. So, Steve, are you asking for, you're asking for the number of people in IDD services that are employed in competitive integrated employment, including but not limited to those receiving supported employment or supports to work in competitive integrated employment, or just those who receive supports to work in competitive integrated employment?
And again, it's really difficult to figure out how to define this in a way that, and then be able to actually get the data.
Right.
And we do have this as part of the contract with KU, I believe. So I'm wondering if what we should do is, encourage that work to continue, and maybe they could do a better job of sorting this out.
Okay, I'm going to write that down when we're
Yeah.
talking here.
Thank you for that suggestion.
Hi, Rocky, this is Sheila.
Hi.
Hi. Hey, I wonder, there are so many funding sources for people with disabilities, including people with developmental disabilities. Could be autism billing, it could be waiver billing, it could be working healthy, it could be. So to me, we're looking fairly narrowly, which is okay, but it's going to be skewed data unless you just look about people with disabilities working. I don't know where we get it, but I worry about being so narrow because it's not going to show us anything. I mean, at OCCK, we use, I don't know, 8 or 10 funding sources to get people jobs.
Right.
And we don't, we may do it through independent living on the waiver if that's all people have and they want to get a job. I mean, so again, I think the focus is on the job, not the funding source. I don't know how we get to that, but I think we have to ask. I think that's where we want to start.
Right. Okay.
I also think it's important to be curious about businesses that are hiring individuals with disabilities without any funding sources. My son has a job at the grocery store without any sort of support from VR. He just went in and applied and they hired him. So there's no supported employment, there's no job coach. I don't think they get any tax credit. I told the manager about it and he was surprised that that was a thing. So I think it's important to include businesses like that in the study, because I would be very curious to know how many businesses like that are out there. And I think that they need to be celebrated and supported as well.
Okay. All right, so I mean, I'm hearing that we should make a recommendation in this report, kind of identifying the direction that we want to head regarding the collection of data. We can make some suggestions on some potential data sets, but then ask KDADS and KU to work together to study this and report back some recommendations on this issue to KDADS and the commission. Okay, I think that gives us something that can be hopefully finalized prior to our meeting on Monday. Which, by the way, our next meetings are next Monday at 9 and next Tuesday at 9. Okay.
Rocky, this is Craig put a link in the chat to the ICI state data info for employment services outcomes through 2019. So if people are interested in seeing that one, I assume that's probably the most current. Not sure.
Right, yeah, most current Blue Book. Got it. Okay, and we can also talk about, you know, a dashboard. And so I think we've got some language there that we can finalize. So I'm feeling pretty good that we can craft a recommendation around those issues. Just kind of going through these. We've covered quite a few of these before, so I'm just going to look through them and pause every once in a while to see if there's any additional comments. I feel really good about the next two recommendations, that we've got enough there that we could finalize them. Nikki did make a suggestion on Sheila's recommendation here about general education counselors and other relevant IEP team members that seemed smart to me.
Yeah. Right.
So I feel good about that. Allied Global, later on, there's some bullet points there that DRC, we've kind of looked at the Allied Global. And so I think there's some recommendations that can be built around that. I think everything here on this page with the workforce centers and working healthy at work, I feel like that's right on target. Just looking through waiting lists, I think that's fine. And when I say fine, I mean that it's in a good enough shape that, because what I'm going to hope to do between now and Monday, knock on wood, is look through all this, take everything we're talking about like we've done in years past, develop a next draft that would have some more refinement, and hopefully it'll be pretty close to a, if not a final draft, close to where we're within kind of spitting distance of a final draft. And so as I'm looking through this, I'm looking at, okay, which of these recommendations are good enough that I think between now and next Monday, that can be developed and which ones need some more work. And if they need some more work, then we need to spend time on it today at this meeting, and or we need to do something between now and then to get the moving pieces, to get the puzzle pieces, if you will, together to be able to do that. Okay. Yeah, so far everything I've seen up to this point looks like it's in good shape. That's a prior recommendation, so we're in good shape there. Same thing there. Has anyone from KSDE been able to attend these meetings, Martha? I know you invited them, and Stacy got the go ahead to attend.
Right, but Stacy hasn't been available, so she's not been here.
Okay, just curious. Understood. Okay. Kathy's bill, recruiting for state employment, model employer, that all looks good. Benefits counseling, training, looks good. Able, yeah, there's enough parts there. Okay, so everything I've seen thus far, I think looks good. We walked through these last time. I'm still working on them. And I'll continue to work on them this week as well. But all this you've seen before, nothing new here. I think there's enough there that recommendations can be crafted. And then Nikki provided some additional language here on going beyond the basic indicator compliance. And as was accurately pointed out, I mean, this is all supposed to be happening anyway, so, which is a very true statement. And so, yeah, that made sense to me, Nikki, your comment. Did you want to mention anything else about that, Nikki?
No.
Okay. And then these were these here are new. These were some things I was thinking about that I didn't really have. By the time we met last week, I didn't have enough kind of put together to put it down on paper, but I've since spent some time on it, and so tried to flesh out some recommendations. And so like these first couple ones are recommendations for different agencies, sub-agencies working together to basically, there's a lot of hopefully proactive ideas here that can be part of, I don't want to say low-hanging fruit, but part of some steps that can happen that can be helpful for this process. So that's what that's what those recommendations attempt to do. Um,
Hey, Rocky, this is Susan
Uh-huh.
Weidenbach. Could I interrupt?
uh-huh,
That first or second bullet about shared data collection system,
right.
we've been trying to do that for 15 years and run into issues with HIPAA and FERPA and all of the PAWs that keep us from being able to communicate with each other, and the tens of millions of dollars it costs to do that. So I would recommend that you at least talk about how expensive it is to develop that, and make a recommendation that the legislature fund that, and make a recommendation that the legislature allow any state agency to share data with any other state agency. That's what will have to happen. We'll have to change the law, saying that all state employees are covered under the same liability and have access to all the same information. So
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I understand that change very well may cost money, but I view our role as the commission is to identify issues, and to make recommendations. Then it's up to the state agency to look at those recommendations and say what it's going to cost. I don't think any of us can put a price tag on doing this. I mean, you're right that one of the reasons why I tried to develop a bullet point about it is because this has been talked about for a long time. And to me, just because something's been talked about for a long time and it hasn't happened doesn't mean you stop talking about it. I think the need is still there. And it's something that's still worthy of a recommendation. Now it's up to state government to decide how seriously they want to take a recommendation like that. Or if they want to say, well, we've tried that and we just don't know how to get around it.
so is the audience I guess my point is that the audience is the legislature.
Well, the audience is the legislature, the governor, and state agencies.
Okay, all right. Okay, got it. Thank
Yeah, I mean, that's the
So-
audience. I mean, and you all are, there's a reason why there aren't voting members of the commission who are with state agencies. There's a reason why you all are liaisons, and you know why your feedback is so vital. But you know, it's not the agencies then making recommendations to themselves. It's a appointed commission looking at this, everyone getting together, talking through it, and making recommendations.
So, Rocky, I'm also on the Kansas Transition Coordinating Council, and I was on the team that attended an intact capacity building conference last May, and we discussed, we as in Department of Ed folks worked, and I kind of spoke to that in a different section up above, but we were working with VR about the need to have this data sharing system. So I don't know if that would be helpful to articulate that it's not just the Employment First Commission talking about the need for this, but there's like we have Intact is telling other people, they're telling the Department of Ed and Voc Rehab, in order to grow, you need to collect data. And in order to collect data, you need to have shared data systems. This is not just one commission saying that this needs to happen. This is, like Susan was saying, you've been trying for 15 years to get this to happen. Technical assistance is helping the Department of Ed and Voc Rehab make this happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And I don't know if you can see what I'm typing. Help me finish this sentence. So repeat what you said about one example.
For many years, in order to go ahead.
So give me that one example. We can type, I can type it up real quick.
The Department of Education and Voc Rehab have been working with Intact,
Been working with, can you spell that for me?
and NTACT. Now you're gonna ask me what it stands for. National
NTACT.
National Technical Assistance Center on Transition.
Okay.
In order to improve long-term outcomes. And one of the foundational strategies is to establish a shared data system.
Okay. Got it. That's helpful. And I would note that, I mean, the way this is written, I mean, it is written kind of narrowly. Okay, so it's centralized data system to better understand the needs of individuals with disabilities, non-competitive, non-integrated settings, assist the state in transitioning individuals out of those settings. So we're not saying necessarily that you have to share every single piece of data. And I'm not saying we shouldn't make that recommendation as a commission. I'm just pointing out that yes, there's been discussions about sharing all kinds of data above and beyond transitioning individuals out of non-competitive, non-integrated settings. This is focusing on just that component. So it's more bite-sized than a massive data sharing agreement that would do everything. Doesn't mean it's not difficult. If it was easy, it would have been done already, right? So, but it also doesn't mean that we shirk our responsibility and say, well, we've talked about that and we haven't done it, so we're going to stop talking about it.
Rocky, one thing that we've talked about with the eFirst grant is that we have several state partnering agencies that we're working with. And when we talked about funding sequencing, we talked about each of those entities, you know, putting in their part to make that system work so that Kansas can be, you know, a one-stop shop for employment, and we're all using the same language and that kind of thing. I don't know if that's appropriate to put here or not, but I just want to say that.
Right. No, that makes sense. Okay. All right. Then on the Allied Global, so this was just our attempt to go through the Allied Global report, which was shared by Martha previously, and we tried to just kind of go through the bullet points and recommendations of that report and break it down into just summarize it a little bit. And so that's what this attempts to do. And I mean, I think there are some good recommendations in that report. I definitely, excuse me. I definitely think there's some information there that we could take some of these bullet points and craft some recommendations around. I mean, I think it's very good news that, you know, these are recommendations that, you know, although they've been around there for a little while, it's not like, in my opinion, it's not like these recommendations have just been rejected out of hand. The issue was the recommendations were put together in, you know, middle of 2018, finalized at the end of 2018. And by the time they were finalized, the election happened and a new governor was elected. And so this report was commissioned by Governor Collier based on Governor Brownback's executive order 1502 regarding individuals with disabilities and state employment. And I mean, it's not like the current state government just thinks these are horrible ideas. It's just that when a new administration comes in, they come in with all their new people and everything. And so I think there's a lot of good stuff here, but I think things like this just get lost in the shuttle. So I think there's an opportunity for us to pick some of these up and craft some recommendations around. And I think it's consistent with what a lot of you all have brought back with some of these other recommendations earlier. So there's a lot of stuff here that speaks to the state being a leader, the state being a model employer of people with disabilities.
Hey, Rocky, this is
yeah.
Steve, and whenever I looked through these, I was looking at kind of themes. And to me, there were a couple of themes. One, we should be setting a target like the 7%. I think that's a reasonable thing to pick up. I think we should be looking at how do we simplify the application process for everyone, because it isn't the easiest system to navigate. Even whenever I was going through it, 12 years ago, it got frustrating at times because it wasn't an easy system to navigate. And so I do think the state could make some real improvements that would benefit everyone. And then I don't know how well they are doing as far as there was some points in there about making it more marketing the jobs rather than, people just having to go find them. And so those were three things that I thought, or three themes out of that I think we could pick up and put in our report, at least.
Right. That's good. So I've typed that, I've encapsulated that. So yeah, let me take a run at that to try to fit those recommendations into those themes. I will say, as an employer, a lot of the recommendations that are here about improving the application system, not just sitting there and being passive, but proactively marketing things, is something we've had to learn. And we've had to change how we do things. It's just a different job market today, and it's just a lot more difficult, I think, as an employer to hire. I mean, it's a cliche to say good help is hard to find. Well, in 2023, good help is even harder to find than it was back when this report was written in 2018. So I think those themes and those ideas are still very much salient. Okay. And so, and we got Phil's input here. And yeah, I'm gonna take all this into account, and I'll try to make a recommendation regarding supported employment that people can look at.
Actually, Rocky, I gave you
Next time.
some feedback about that, and really more of my recommendations were further down. That was kind of more of background stuff that I gave you. So, but I sent that to you yesterday.
Oh, okay. I haven't had time to look at it. Let me make a note.
Sure, no problem. And one other thing I'd like to add that's kind of been, like you've talked, floating around for quite some time, is some things we've been trying to do with Project Search here in the state. And I had a discussion with Dan Decker yesterday, and he seemed open to looking at how VR supports Project Search. Well, they're not supporting it here in Kansas, and the model across the country is that VR pays for the job coaching support for Project Search sites, and I'd like to see us recommend that VR pick up that support here. That's a much better transitional model, introducing young folks to the adult service providers who provide that job coaching support. Anyway, I put that in an email yesterday too.
Okay, that's part of the email yesterday. Got it.
Yeah.
And would definitely support that. This is Steve.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think in other states, it's a lot of, I don't know if Cheryl is on here today, but I think in a lot of other states, it's braided funding where the school district pays for some, VR pays for some, and Medicaid pays for some as well. And that really helps get project search off the ground in schools.
Yeah, kind of the model is the schools cover the classroom portion and the teachers, and then for the internship, the Voc Rehab pays for that job coaching support role. And it's a strong evidence-based model that works real well.
Currently in Kansas, I think the school district picks up all of the bill for project search.
Right.
It's a huge barrier.
And there's been some changes within VR with their ability to authorize pre-ets services and other things that may make them more able to do this.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you, what kind of response did you say you talked with VR about this a little bit, about having them
Yes.
step up on project search? Was there,
Yeah. And Dan
did they throw
seemed-
anything at you, throw any food at you, or were they,
Nope.
you know,
he seemed
about it?
interested and said he would,
Okay.
he was willing to look at it.
good?
I
That's
echo
good.
that. I've had a similar conversation with Dan as well, Phil, and he's been supportive.
Okay. All right, cool.
So maybe we put in something, this is Liz, sorry, I'm a little under the weather, so I don't sound like myself, but so maybe the recommendation is also about like the next steps with VR, so that we have something public for him to, you know, respond to, I guess.
So something specific that VR can respond to?
Yeah, you know, because I've heard the same kind of like support of project search, but then we need actionable steps, you know, next steps.
So
Dan and
actionable
Cheryl are,
next-
I'm sorry.
So actionable next steps for VR to respond to. So we need to know, other than just general, yeah, we're willing to talk about it. We need to kind of, we need to create decision points, right?
Right. And how would we implement it? And you know, I mean, it's not for us to decide, but
Right.
it's one of those things where we have so many priorities and so much pressure on things that it can get lost. And I'm sure Dan wants to do that,
Right.
but if we can lay a path for how, that might be a good step. And somebody was trying to respond. I don't know, Mitzi, was that you?
Yeah, I
Go
just
ahead.
wanted to make sure who was on the email list. I just want to make sure that Dan and Cheryl were on this list as well.
I believe they are,
Okay.
aren't they? Aren't they, Martha?
Yes,
this is-
they are.
Okay.
They-
Thank you.
I didn't ask
This-
for
the-
RSVPs, so I don't know.
Steve?
Go ahead,
Okay,
Steve.
this is Steve again, and I've just, as we're having this discussion, we ought to be trying to figure out how to grow project search at the same time. It shouldn't be just,
Agreed.
the 12, 13 schools, districts that we have doing it. It should be available to more of our youth in all of our communities. I mean, I think one of the things that we found with project search is that it actually does work, and it gives students an opportunity to go on, get some additional training, and then become employed. And so why are we only doing that with a handful of our districts whenever that should be more of a model that we use everywhere in the state?
Well, and being able to have coaches that are paid for would help more
Right.
districts be interested, I'm sure. Yeah, it's a great program that teaches those soft skills. We can take folks out and get them in jobs and coach them to the job specific, but don't always get a chance to work on those soft skills and things that project search does really well.
And again, we shouldn't be doing this we're doing it in the state without the help of VR. We've got a few school districts that are stepping up. We ought to be really putting some pressure on to make that available for everyone and have our state agencies leading the charge, not dragging their feet on it.
Well, Dan
So-
mentioned that he hadn't, they have the 15% requirement to spend on transition programs, and they haven't hit that mark. And so that's one of the reasons I brought this up.
This is a great conversation, and Dr. Watson has done a fantastic job of bringing up the importance of competitive integrated employment in a lot of conferences that I've attended. And they've been general ed conferences, not just special ed conferences. So I love that he's bringing it up in front of superintendents, not just the directors. And so I think having VR's financial support would really make this a lot more attainable for school districts. So
Right.
if we have that financial support and continue to talk to Dr. Watson about promoting it, I think that would be a great opportunity to grow it.
That makes perfect sense. So it seems to me that we have a lot of momentum around this idea of project search, VR's role, making detailed recommendations that are actionable, not just general, like Liz was saying. Like Steve was saying, figure out how to grow project search. Like Phil was saying, you know, they still haven't met their targets on pre-vocational, on pre-ETs and stuff like that. VR has it. So, you know, there's funding there, there's opportunities there.
Very good.
I would really like to have a group work on some language for our report. Here's the issue on everything else. Like when we were going through this, we're like, oh, well, there's enough there that we can finalize a recommendation. I think we need this fleshed out, and I don't feel comfortable me just whole cloth coming up with language on this. Are there a couple of you who can get together, like between now and Friday, do what is spelled out here? And by the way, when we're done with this, I'll save it and send it out, and everyone will have these notes. So you can see, oh yeah, this is what Liz said, and Nikki and Phil and Steve. Can a couple of you get together to write something up on project search and VR?
So Rocky, I don't want to volunteer people who aren't on the call, but is it worthy of you potentially sending an email to Dan and Cheryl Lacker and whoever the KSD representative is to discuss that and write something up?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to invite them to the table. I don't want to, I guess my only hesitancy is I don't want to hand this off to someone if I don't know they're going to get it done by when we meet
Right.
next.
Well,
So I
think
want to bring them to the table, but I want people like Phil, Nikki, Liz, Steve, you know, I want you guys to be involved because I think you have some great ideas here. And I agree, bring VR, bring KSD to the table, see if they can be part of these recommendations. And if they can, then I think it jumpstarts everything. Steve, you were trying to say something?
Yeah, Rocky, this is Steve, and I was just going to say, the workforce board has a role in this as well. They've got money for youth and in-school and out-of-school youth, and so I don't want to leave them off the list because they're another partner that we need to make sure we get engaged with this. And having said that, I would be a member of a committee to do a little more work on that, especially if I can get maybe Nikki and Phil to join me.
I would be happy to be on that committee as well. And I have a good relationship with Dan and Stacy both as well. And I have a good relationship with Bert Moore as well.
Glad to
Phil,
help.
can I put you down?
Sure, glad to help.
Okay.
If we want to
Okay, so-
invite those representatives, I would be more than happy to reach out to them and see if they'd be interested in participating in the conversation.
I think
Okay.
that would be great, Nikki.
Okay.
All right, so there we go. So we got Steve, Nikki, Phil. Anyone else want to help out? I don't want to speak for you, Liz, but if I also don't want to leave you out, or anyone else, frankly.
Honestly, if I look at my schedule between now and Friday, I just slammed and I'm currently
problem.
quarantined. So just-
Understood.
yeah, I would normally jump all over this, but I think it's in capable hands. I think Steve and Nikki both have where I'm headed.
Yeah, the only other person I would think of is maybe Craig if he's on.
This is Mark. I'd like to attend also, please.
Got it. Got Mark. Craig, are you on?
I am on. It just depends on when the meeting is scheduled.
Okay. Yeah, all of this depends on availability, but just need to know who wants to be brought to the table if you're available. So we got and I misspelled Mark. There we go. Okay. Does that look good? Who will convene this group? The Steve, Nikki, Phil, Mark, Craig, and inviting reps from VR and KSD. Who's gonna?
I vote Nikki.
You okay with that, Nikki?
Okay, I can do that.
So Nikki will convene the writing committee.
Yeah, remember, I'm
Project Search
retired.
Writing committee. Okay, got it. Okay, good deal. All right, so yeah, and obviously understand that you all either have day jobs or have retirement life. And so, I mean, if you're able to get something to us by close of business Friday, that'd be great. So we can look at it before Monday. But if you have to work on it over the weekend, you have to work on it over the weekend, right? But it'd be great to be able to have something definitive that we can look at and say, oh, yes, we support this, or hey, how about these changes when we meet Monday at 9? Does that sound all right? Okay, good deal. Do you want to talk? I think these were your, yeah. So you want to talk about this comment here about Colorado, Nikki? This was one of your comments you made in what you sent.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time digging into Colorado's Employment First website this weekend, and I thought it was really interesting how they have a sustainability program. So they have people just dedicated year round to supporting implementation of Employment First, which I think is a fantastic idea. Where they have trainers supporting businesses on best practices. And the original, like I said up here, the original funding was created by the legislature, and then it was matched by Voc Rehab and then their Department of Labor. And then they used that to monetize some of their training programs. And that's how they built their sustainability program. And I think that's a fantastic idea. I don't know if we have time to make some sort of recommendation like that, but they have a pretty robust website if you guys have time to look at it. And I would love to know what other people think.
And remind me, was the website in here, or can you drop in the chat and I'll copy and paste it in here just so we have it in one place?
I definitely meant to click it and link it in there. Sorry.
That's okay. Well, and this stuff about Colorado, we might incorporate that into a recommendation that we're making above regarding the oversight in the Kansas Employment First Oversight Commission, because Colorado is specifically mentioned in that recommendation, which is a recommendation from last year. So I might be able to take this language, Nikki, and work it into that.
What I liked about it was that it wasn't just oversight, it was also an implementation plan.
Exactly.
Rocky, what I'd like to add to that is that Colorado was one of the 10 pilot states like Kansas to get the NEON grant as well.
Okay, so there's some synergy there.
Yeah.
You said 1 of 10?
Yes.
Did you say? Okay. And that was that ODEP or was that?
Yes, it was ODEP.
Got it. All right. And when you
Rocky,
find that
this is
website,
Martha.
just give me a holler, Nikki. Let me know when it's in the chat, and I'll put it here.
It is
It's in the chat now.
It is okay. Let me go get that before I forget. Employment First Colorado. Okay. Got it. All right. Yeah, Martha, did you have something else you wanted to?
No, I was just gonna let you know that Craig and Nikki put the link in there in the chat.
Okay. Okay, got it. All right. All right, so let's look over just looking if there's anything else where we need to appoint a writing committee. I feel pretty good that we've got enough here in front of us that we can put together our puzzle and have a report. Just looking around to see.
Hey, Rocky, I thought I saw something in the parking lot about transportation. I think
Oh,
Sheila
good.
had mentioned something about that.
Yeah,
And
good
I
point.
felt like we
Yeah.
haven't touched on
Let me
that
go back to
again.
that. Let me go back to transportation. Yeah,
Right.
so that was something that we said we were going to come back to. What, if any, concrete recommendations do we want to make regarding transportation and employment first? Transportation and competitive integrated employment. Is there? Yeah, you're right. That would lend itself to a writing group. Is there someone who wants to take that on?
Well, this is Sheila, and I've been doing a lot of thinking about transportation. You know, we give about 300 rides a year, and it's affordable, accessible in Salina. 30% of that is employment related.
Mhm.
So I would love to be part of a group to take a stab. And the other thing I was going to say is the Secretary of KDOT's coming to Salina here soon. And so we could certainly have conversations with, to begin this, we could certainly have an initial conversation. I think they need to be at the table. I think, you know, KDOT has always supported employment, and, you know, I think we have a lot of opportunities, but I'd be glad to be on a group. I'm not going to be with you Monday, but I'm back Tuesday.
Okay.
I'd be glad to work on some general recommendations.
Who else would work with Sheila on that between now and the end of the week?
I'd be, if we can just email stuff back and forth, Sheila, maybe.
Okay.
I'm pretty interested in the idea of creating an transportation service for Medicaid that is employment related. We already do that with the work program and steps. And so I was trying to think of ways we could expand that. And I've been looking at how we talk about social determinants of health all the time. Well, I've got a little flyer. I don't know. It's a one-page kind of idea about how employment is supported by transportation and healthcare and housing. And, you know, if you are missing one of those, things just don't work, right?
Yeah.
And so I have already given some thought to that. But like I said earlier, I'm kind of just slammed this week. So I would certainly be willing to email back and forth with you, Sheila, if you want to.
That would be great. Thank you.
Any other takers on the transportation writing group?
Yeah, Rocky, this is Shanti. I'd be happy to do that. I'm I'm actually on PTO the rest of the week, but if it's going to be done by email, I can certainly be available for that.
Okay, good. Shanti? And Sheila, do you have Shanti and Liz's emails, or can you guys drop those in the chat just so? Sheila, do you mind kind of convening this?
That'd be great.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, that sounds good. Something else I was going to ask about. What was it? I'm looking over it, see if it jogs my memory. On the tip of my tongue. Shoot, can't remember now. Is Sarah Hart we're on? I know she can only be on a little while. I don't know if she had to jump off. Okay, apparently so.
Rocky, this is Martha. You had asked me to reach out to Secretary Howard about the agency cabinet level agency meeting.
Oh, right,
I
yeah.
still haven't heard from them, and I know that the governor's office is closed this morning for a funeral, so I imagine the secretaries are gone too.
Right.
But I'm hoping to hear, I'll try and reach out again this afternoon and see whether or not we can get something together. I don't know if
Okay.
that's what you were thinking about or not, but we haven't talked about that.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey,
That's
yeah.
good follow-up on that. And I would say that, yeah, if we can meet with the secretary prior to the end of the year, that'd be great. But I also know it's the holidays and their schedules get really jammed up at the end of the year. If this is a recommendation that we've made the last couple of years, and the secretary made the commitment to take the lead, not just this last year, but a couple years ago. So if we can't get in before the end of the year, that's okay. I think we'll just try to meet with her at the earliest possible moment, even if that's, in the new year.
Okay. I copied you on that, and I'll copy you on response. Okay.
Yeah, I saw that. Thank you for doing that.
Mhm.
It sounds good. Okay. Other ideas? I'm getting some weird feedback.
Mhm.
If folks can just mute if you're not talking, that would be great. I know, Martha, I don't know if you have the ability to mute people as the host. You should be able to hit the ellipse and mute or unmute. Okay. Well, I mean, I feel like we're organized well enough that we have a plan of how to finalize these things. I think Sarah was working on some stuff she had mentioned last time. I'm sorry, it's just that feedback just makes it so I can't talk. And so she might be bringing something back. We have the writing committees bringing some things back. I think for most of these recommendations, we've already been through them a couple of times. You guys have written them up. I think it's just a matter of finalize them, putting the puzzle pieces together. So I'll try to do that on the stuff on the ground that's already been plowed. I'll try to spend time to do that. We'll have the writing committees working. I think Sarah said she was working on some stuff, putting some finer points on her things. And so the writing committees hopefully will report back by the end of the week. Again, if you have to go over the weekend, you have to go over the weekend, and we'll figure it out. I'll try to report back by the end of the week on trying to take these things where we already have recommendations, we already have language, and trying to get it in the format, try to, have some consistency in our format and things of that sort. So I'll do a round of edits, send it out to everyone. And then hopefully by, the goal would be if we can have everything to everyone by the end of the week. Again, Friday's preferable, Sunday would be a backup. Then we can act on them on Monday and Tuesday, finalize them. And like we've done in past years, I'd like to get to a point where we have language, and then the only thing we're doing is we're looking for errors, omissions, typos, grammatical changes that don't change the substance. And we've typically been able to get our reports in a form and format to where, like, okay, we agree with these recommendations. These are the commission's recommendations. And then have Martha and someone, it's typically been me, look through them just for those things without changing the recommendations, without changing the content, just making sure that we got the grammar, we got the spelling, we've got those things hammered out. And if we can do that by next Monday or Tuesday, then I think we won't have to set any more meetings. If we can't by next Monday or Tuesday, then I think we're probably realistically looking at after Christmas, which creates some issues because Christmas falls on a Monday. And so let's try to do everything we can to get this together so that so the commissioners are voting on this and taking action on Monday and or Tuesday of next week. Sound like a plan?
Sounds good.
All right. Was that Brad? Hey, Brad.
Yeah. Hey, Rocky. Hey, was the waiting list and the 20% the one that we were gonna work on together?
Yes.
You want to get together, and I think it looks good the way it is. But was there anything else we think we needed to add to that one?
No, we've nothing has come up to add. As I've reviewed it and re-reviewed it a couple times since we came up with that initial draft, I think it's pretty straightforward, and I don't think we need to clarify anything.
Yeah, I think it is too. I've gone over it a couple times and I really can't think of anything else we need to add. So
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. So.
Okay.
Yep.
That sounds good.
Yep.
All right. All right. Well, I feel comfortable with our next steps.
Yep.
My thought is let's go ahead and adjourn the meeting. We've got our next steps. We get nearly an extra hour now to start working on those next steps. So
Yep.
sounds great.
Off we go.
Hey,
All right.
Rocky, before you log off, just one quick question for you.
Yeah.
Personally, you got a copy of the agenda for tomorrow for the steering committee, the Employment First Steering Committee. And
Yes, I have not had time to look at it. I know you wanted me to talk. Remind me again what you wanted me to talk about, just so.
kind of talk a little bit about what the Kansas Employment First Oversight Commission is, and kind of what some of the highlights that the commission is looking at this year. So
Okay.
we've about 10 minutes to talk about that.
Okay.
So.
All right, that sounds good. Yeah. I can do
And
that.
Brad, you can hop in too, because you'll be on that call too, if you'd
I
like.
sure will. I'll hop in when I need to.
Okay,
That's good.
That
I
sounds good.
appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day, and we'll convene again on Monday and look forward to everyone's work product.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.